right? The freedom actually comes in having choice, and only the cognitive brain can choose. And so the more you can create opportunities where the cognitive brain, gets a say, not you, the hardwiring and the programming, dictates what happens. The more you can create that, the more freedom you actually have.
Welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. What I did today, Paula, Christine, what I did today is we just started talking off camera, and I started liking the conversation, so I just hit record, and so we've been going from there. But my guest today...
Paula, you're so direct.
I know, it's such a horrible thing to be, is direct. And so, I'm here with... Do you go by Tom or Thomas?
You know what? Tom works for this conversation.
Okay, Tom. So I'm going to see if I can do I botch everybody's last name, so don't get offended. Blottenberger.
Oh my God, perfect.
Yay!
Better than how I say it.
Anyway, we just started talking about... Yeah, that's funny. You can't say your own name. We just started talking about the weekend, actually, and how we were... Actually, no, it was how we were feeling this morning. And then we ended up at this conversation. So I have no idea where the conversation is going to go, but we're just going to keep continuing it. So welcome. You're up this time. You get to lead the conversation.
Oh, cool. All right. What would you like to talk about? That's how I lead conversations, just so you know. I always lead with questions.
What would I like to talk about? I could throw it back at you with that. What would you like to talk about? But that would be kind of a boring podcast because we would just be throwing it back at each other.
It'd be like one of those, I think the crows from one of those old Disney commercials. I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Yeah. I can't remember what show it's from.
I don't either, but that just made me think of something. I think I had like a black crow in my driveway the other day when I'm thinking, what does that mean? Like, is that something coming my way? But then I turned it into a positive somehow. That one I still struggle with. Maybe I'll go out and sage. I'm going to go sage my driveway to get rid of the black crow.
Oh my gosh. That is great.
That's so silly.
We started talking about mindset, right? And the show is called Beyond the Paycheck, right? And so what, I guess, let's say we're talking to a particular listener, right? And, what would we want a listener to get out of this conversation that would have them go, oh man, like, yeah, this was totally beyond the paycheck.
Well, you're supposed to be the guest.
I know.
So what would I want them to get out of this conversation? So I know that when I was reading about you, you definitely talk about money and money mindset, investing, that kind of, that's your topic. So I think what I would want out of this is for most of or all the listeners to really understand. We talk about mindset all the time. That's just one of the things that I talk about a lot. But we talk about like the things you need to change and the way that you get there. But let's say that we're into that, coming out of the learning and trying to keep maybe in that mindset, which can be difficult. Like we were both talking like this morning that I popped out of it for a couple of different reasons, for some stuff that happened to me over the weekend. But I popped myself back into it relatively quickly because I know what to do. But so and money is really, really hard. Really, really hard. Really, really hard to get, but it can be done because I've done it and it can be, but it's hard to not fall back into that old scarcity mindset or whatever it was before you did the work. So I'm going to throw the floor to you. Perfect. Ready, Tom? You're up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think the main thing, since you talk about mindset so much on the show, the main thing to realize is it's a journey and not a destination. And that, for me, I use the definition of mastery, that it's not that you don't stop doing something, right? Mastery in the space of mindset and money isn't that you somehow no longer have scarcity, because that would actually transcend you above the human condition. The human condition is scarcity. The human mindset is designed for survival. So to never have that, you'd become superhuman truly. It's mastery for me in this domain is how quickly can I recognize when I'm operating out of a way of thinking or a way of being or a mindset that isn't going to get me what I want, and be able to shift it. I'll give you a brief example of that. So most of my adult life I pinpointed it somewhere in childhood. I developed a story around money that I better spend it. I better use it for myself. I better use it while I've got it. Otherwise, someone's going to take it away from me and I'm not going to have it anymore. And I became a financial advisor 2009. God, it's a long time. 2009, 2010. And I was giving people advice on budgeting and investments and insurance and real estate and mortgages. And all my advice I couldn't use for myself because every dollar I made, I turned around and I spent it.
Wow.
And I always wondered why, but I could never pinpoint it. Like I knew the budgeting, I knew the strategies, I knew how I knew all the knowledge stuff about how you're supposed to save money and use money and whatnot. And yet I couldn't do it for myself. And it wasn't until I discovered the underlying operating system, or at least a component of it, that I had access to do anything. So, and a lot of people most people sit on one side of the pendulum to varying degrees for different stories of how to deal with money. They either save and hoard all their resources, and then they feel guilty when they use it, which isn't very effective, and it's actually out of scarcity because the whole point of the resource is to be used, right? And then the other side of the spectrum where I sat to a very high degree of extremity was using all my resources and then looking at my account and going, oh shit, why did I do that? And then feeling guilty because I used it. And, most people sit on one side or the other of that spectrum. So it wasn't until I realized that story that I was able to do anything. Budgets never did anything, if you can imagine it, with that underlying story. I was just stealing it from myself
right
at that point.
Yeah. So let's break that down for a second. So
Sure.
Once you realize that, and I know people like that. I know people who spend everything. They don't live on their budget. You know what? I know this is going to switch the subject for a second. But kind of like when you think about the abundance mindset and, you use the affirmation, that I have, I'm truly grateful for everything that I have. I have all the money I need to spend and donate and stuff. You get to that, if you're really believing that and following that through in your life, then you shouldn't really have to worry about budgeting because it's supposed to be there, right? But yet I'm like, is it?
Well, no. So actually, it is a valuable topic. So, or a valuable tangent is even if I could have followed a budget at that point, I don't think that budgets work.
Well, even if you would have never been able, in your mindset, you would have never been able to find, because it didn't matter. If you had $1, you were going to spend it.
Yep.
So, yeah. Maybe some automatic savings programs might have helped you.
So yeah, that's what I've noticed is there's two main reasons. This is slightly off topic, but psychologically, there's two main reasons I think budgeting doesn't produce abundance as an idea or as a concept. The first is because it truly is against almost all of human nature. Like, to be successful at a budget requires, and to actually stick to one, requires you to be a level of discipline where you should also have like 8% body fat. Like, as far as if you can stick to that level of discipline. If you think of the nature of what a budget is, you're taking all of the variable expenses of life and you're trying to turn them into fixed expenses that you are tracking on a reoccurring basis. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, I can't seem to live on. I talk about it all the time, living on a budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but even if you could, here's the problem. Even if you could, what you're operating off of is past data and a scarcity in the sense of this income that I'm making is all that I will be making. And therefore, I need to budget this income effectively. Whereas the moment you start to make more money, it breaks the budget. If I get a 30% increase in my income, what most people will do with that 30% increase on a normal budget is keep saving the amount that they were saving and just consume that extra into lifestyle, not even realizing it, not even paying attention to it. And then it actually ends up breaking the budget. They either stop tracking or they keep tracking, but they only inflated the spending, not the saving category. So for the sake of saving, even a budget doesn't really work well.
But I think with a budget, at some point you have to get a grasp of where maybe it's not, based on what you're saying, maybe it's not something that you're daily tracking or weekly, monthly tracking, whatever. But I think in the beginning, you have to understand what's coming in and what's going out, especially if you're accumulating debt and you're not doing the right things. I mean, yes, you can have an abundance mindset, but it doesn't mean that you can go out and charge, $50,000 and just know that the money's coming to pay that off. That's not at all. You have to have some sort of responsibility, but you don't know that until you sit down and actually look and make some basic and some smart decisions like, hey, I'm really overspending. And that's why I'm in debt and I can't get ahead. But that, again, is a mindset that needs to be worked on.
Yeah. Well, and there's two separate components to that. The first that you're talking about is awareness. So there's the awareness of what's so. And from that standpoint, being, actually looking at what you're spending and being aware of it has value, because sometimes just by being aware of it, you'll make different decisions. That's valuable. But that's not the same as budgeting. Right? Budgeting is then trying to take that awareness and turn it into a habitual behavior around things that cannot be controlled. That's where it starts to go off the rails a little. And so the question becomes, the question I ask, and the operative question, I think, is it possible to design your cash flow, design the way in which you flow money without having it be a budget where everything is fixed and still have it be effective? And I believe the answer to that is yes, but it requires looking from a different perspective. It requires looking at it from a different lens than the traditional budgeting techniques.
I'm thinking. Okay, tell me more.
Well, okay. Right. No. So if you think, so again, psychologically, if you think of how most of us are taught, or how we default into dealing with money, the default is I get a paycheck and that paycheck immediately goes into a checking account. And that checking account, I have, let's say, subconsciously trained myself, is for spending now. Right? It goes into this checking account and my mortgage gets paid out of it, my rent gets paid out of it, my car bill gets paid out of it, my gas gets paid out of it, or I put some stuff on a credit card and then it pays off the credit card. And so for most people, this account where all the money sits is you've conditioned yourself that it's for spending. So if I have $2,000 sitting in that account, my spending will be commiserate generally. If I have 15,000, what you'll notice, and what anybody listening will notice, is you go from 2,000 to 15,000, your purchases probably go up. The size of the purchases, the amount of the purchases, it follows suit because that's been the training. You have trained yourself that account is for spending. The more that's in there, the more to be spent.
So what I do is I put just what I need to cover, and I put the rest of my money elsewhere.
There you go. That's a perfect example of a way to design the cash flow. And so what you're doing in that's different, is you're designing it such that you're by that creating that separation and having the money go into two different places. What it sounds like is this place becomes guilt-free spending because it's designed that way.
Right.
you just, that's probably the most effective way to manage cash flow without trying to make every single fixed or variable expense fixed. So there you go. You found it.
Wow. Who knew I was so smart? I
Well,
did.
and I knew it. That's why I was on the show.
See?
But it's yeah, just expanding on that. The biggest way, one of the easiest ways, someone can do this on their own. There's tools that automate it. I actually represent a tool that automates it. And what you can do, the most powerful way that I've seen to do it is you have the paycheck or cash, W-2, commission, whatever it is, especially if it's a varying paycheck. Like if you're a real estate agent or you sell something that's commission based, this works phenomenal. Is you have that money go into an account where no spending happens. It goes there first, like a reservoir. It sits there and goes into an account in which nothing is spent from. And the only way money gets spent is that account has to move money to an account for spending. And that creates a habit where, or the psychological aspect of it is now I'm appeasing the lizard brain because the account that I've moved it to, I can spend and use and consume. But I'm also dealing with it rationally and cognitively, where any pay increases, any extra income, any bonuses are automatically captured first. And if I'm going to spend them, I have to be intentional about moving it. Whereas if it goes to that other account first, usually just disappears and you hear something like, where'd the money go? We just got that bonus. What did we spend it on?
Right.
I don't know. What did we spend it on?
I really like that. I like the intentional part of that. And because it kind of even goes back to the 24-hour rule, or, thinking before you spend. Because if you have to go to this account and say, well, I want to go out tomorrow and spend, I'm just going to use shoes because that speaks to most women.
Understood.
$200 on a pair of shoes, I have to intentionally take that money, which means I have to think about it, versus if I just credit card it or debit it or write a check for it or however else you're going to pay for that. Then I've taken that thought out of buying those shoes. I just did it.
Yep.
But now I have to intentionally think about it because I got to transfer the money. I like that.
And it allows for the possibility of accountability and support, right? Like in a traditional scenario, like let's say you're meeting with a traditional financial advisor. First off, most financial advisors don't deal with cash flow. Just frankly, we deal with what makes us money, which would be investments and insurance and things of that nature. I only do investments. But that's an example, right? So the average advisor is just going to tell someone to try to do a budget. But then in addition to that, if you consider that what most of the industry is looking at is if you already have the income, if you already have the resources to spend. So they're less interested in helping someone figure it out, and they're more interested in getting someone who already has it. So you're not going to get accountability generally from the traditional financial world around cash flow management. So how do you do it? Well, the best way to do it is something like this, where you're structuring it. It's easier to follow than a budget because you're not trying to, okay, $500 for grocery. Crap, we spent $600. $300 for gas. Crap, we spent $350. Or, oh, look, we hit our dining out budget of $500. I guess we can't spend anymore. Granted, our other, items are lower, but, we can't pull from those and spend over here. I don't know. It's just.
So are you saying that you would take, let's say that, well, you got to have an idea, first of all, what you're spending in order to make this work. So let's say that I've looked over the last 6 months and I've realized I spend $3,000 a month. It doesn't matter what it's on, but I spend $3,000 a month. And that works for me. I can spend $3,000 and I'm comfortable and I'm not worried about money. Okay. So my check gets deposited into my account A, and then from A, I'm going to move over $3,000 to where it's my spending account.
Yes.
And if I have to go over to A to get more money, then I have to think about what the heck is it that I'm doing, because now I'm overspending. I like that.
And now it allows
And it
problem
doesn't,
solving.
yeah. So, and then it doesn't matter if I spent $600 on groceries or $200 and I ate out for the other 400. Doesn't matter. I'm just living on
Right.
that $3,000 that I'm spending.
And the psychology is such that our brains will work with what's there. So if there's 15,000 sitting in that account, I'm going to find a way to spend it if I've trained myself that this is a spending account. If there's 3,000 sitting there, I'm going to work with that. It's just how, again, test after test after test of, multitudes of clients on this is just how it works. I had a lady who we put on this system I'm talking about. And again, you can do this on your own. Like, you're somewhat doing it on your own from what you're sharing. That was the other point to make, was people assume that how they're spending is how it has to be going forward, or what they've done is how it's going to be. The only caveat I'd make to that is whatever someone's spending is currently without structure. It's currently inside of the space of, if it's the normal scenario of paycheck going into spending account, it's inside of, as there's more, they spend more, as there's less, they spend less. So most people don't actually have any idea of how much they could or should or would spend if they had a structure. So I don't even go there. The only thing I'm interested in when we're doing cash flow design is fixed expenses first, because those are fixed. We know what those are. But I'll give you an example. I had a lady who thought she was paycheck to paycheck, thought that she couldn't create any savings. When she did her budget, she was actually negative, and so gave up on it, because why can't I follow a budget you're negative on, right?
Yeah. Somehow everything seems to be getting paid, although I'm negative.
Right, exactly. And so what we did was put her on the system where, okay, your paycheck goes first to this reservoir account, savings account. From there, you design money movements into your spending account, and you're intentional with it. She did that. 8 months later, her target was $7,000 saved. 8 months later, she had $7,000 saved. We took that, paid off some debt. Because we paid off some debt, that freed up some cash flow. 7 months later, she had another 7,000 saved. So in a year and a half, someone who thought that they couldn't save any money, whose budget showed negative, we didn't bother with what she thought she spent. We created it, and she saved $14,000 in a year and a half. And still was enjoying life because she was spending guilt-free out of the other account.
So what do you do with someone who uses their credit card to pay for everything?
Again, this is what's beautiful. It allows for the problem solving. If I've got $15,000 sitting in a commingled account, and I feel like I have, it's designed to be spent, well, it's a lot easier to end up putting more money on the credit card. And then the mortgage comes out, the car payment comes out, the expenses come out, and then you see the account, instead of at 15, it's at 4, but you put 6 on the credit card. Now you're like, crap, I misjudged that. Some people are like, crap. Might be more aggressive, right?
No, not us. We don't swing.
But if I'm designing it, right? So I'm designing it to be intentional, and I've got, like you said, $3,000 in this account, and I do most of my spending on a credit card. Now I can actually set up the accountability. I can mirror it. Okay, my credit card is going to mirror that account. So if I've got $2,000 on my credit card and I've got $3,000 in this account, I know I've got $1,000 more of wiggle room. And that's all I need to track at that point. Now, let's say that continually doesn't work. Well, then that's further evidence that there needs to be some other kind of shift. Maybe at that point it's, hey, listen, until we can build a habit, let's get rid of that credit card and let's switch to the debit card. But we're not starting with the extreme, right? We're allowing, my opinion of this process is allowing someone's self-discovery. Wow, look, I'm discovering now that I've got a system, it's not working the way it's set up. What's the reason? Oh, I'm overspending on the credit card. Well, what do you think you should do about that? And have them discover versus just being told what they should do. Weirdly, telling someone what you think they should do never works.
Really?
You should be
I think
less
as
direct.
A parent, we figured that out. If you don't want your kids to do something, say the complete opposite, and then they'll do exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah. And in general, the financial world is basically that. When it comes to investing, You go meet with a financial advisor. They go, here's my pie chart. Here's your pie chart. My pie chart's better. Do you want to invest with me? And they tell you, or you should invest with me. But they don't really teach someone to discover what actually works. When it comes to cash flow, the big gurus out there, you're doing it wrong. You got to budget. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to cut up your credit cards. Yeah, sure, there's some people that works for, but most people aren't going to do it.
Yeah, I talk a lot about budgeting, but in the sense that I think most people just need to be aware, first of all, what they're spending, and you find things that you can find money when you realize where your money is going.
Yep.
So you're just taking it a step further and just saying it doesn't matter where you spend your $3,000. It's just you can only spend your $3,000. And when that's done, then you've got to make a decision. Are you transferring more money over or trying to figure out like what you did to cause it to be done? That's kind of like the envelope method. It's kind of like where you're putting money into this envelope and then you're pulling it out. And when it's empty, it's a wake-up call. It's empty. It's mid-month, and I got nothing left.
It's like
I still have to eat.
I can see that. It's like the tech. It's like the tech-savvy envelope.
Yeah. That's how my grandma did everything with the envelope method. And I think it's a great way because especially when you're trying to learn about what's really important to you, too, is it important to stop at Starbucks? And I don't stop at Starbucks. I have no idea. I could be saying something wrong, but I think it's $5 for a coffee. When we do that,
depends on what you get, but yeah. Generally.
Yeah. So I mean,
I'm a hot blonde Americano kind of a guy. That's about $4.95.
Is that your dating life? For your coffee?
Okay, so my wife wouldn't like that. But to be fair,
that's funny.
She's a brunette, Irish Indian, Irish Native American.
My face is turning over.
But I do every time I order it. The 13-year-old in me, every time I order it, wants to say, "I'll take a hot blonde Americano and a coffee too."
Yeah. No, that's like exactly what I thought when you said that. I'm like, what is he saying?
Yep.
Okay,
but
sorry.
yes, it's about $4.95. Yeah. So you're not.
So
too
if
far
you
off.
think about that, if you start running out of money, then I think it kind of will make you say, "Hey, what's going on here? Now I think you're able to make more decisions." But then even if you keep running out of money, it still all goes back to the mindset. You got to work on that.
Yep.
This has been a great conversation.
I was going to say, there's an interesting dynamic. I had a conversation with a lady who didn't want to do something like this because she felt like she was free without the awareness. And I got called direct because I'm direct. And I said, you're not free. You're a slave to your impulses. There is no freedom in being a slave to your impulses. There's no freedom in letting your subconscious run everything. Right? The freedom actually comes in having choice, and only the cognitive brain can choose. And so the more you can create opportunities where you, the cognitive brain, gets a say, not you, the hardwiring and the programming, dictates what happens. The more you can create that, the more freedom you actually have.
I like that. I like exactly how you phrase that. I'm going to steal that.
You're more than welcome to.
Well, it's out there in the world now. Anybody can take it.
Oh, crap. Gotta go trademark it real quick.
Hurry up. You better hurry. So this has been really interesting conversation, and our personalities have really just clicked. Am I the hot blonde?
We just become best friends?
No, I'm not hot. I'm a nice looking blonde, but I don't go with hot. But anyway, well, that was really conceited.
It's okay. I also think I'm attractive.
Oh my God, my editors are going to be like, what the heck is going on here? Is this a podcast?
Right. This
or
is
just
a fun
two friends talking and then we've never met and we got a great conversation. Okay,
maybe the podcast was just the friends we made along the way. Right.
Oh, that's so nice. I like that. I'll steal that one too. You better get to the trademark store.
I'm going to be fast about it.
You better hurry because I'm quick.
They're going to call me Trademark Tommy.
Okay, so we've bんtalking for 30 7 minutes for a 15-minute podcast. So we better go.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay.
All right.
I adore you. I mean, I have enjoyed this conversation. I think you're so cool and so fun. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, how do they get a hold of you?
Thank you. First off, I appreciate it, and right back at you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Well, if someone wants to reach out to me, probably the best way is, I'm a social media guy. I like, one of these days I'll have some kind of offer. I'll click this link and da-da-da-da-da. But right now I don't. So in the meantime, just look me up on Facebook. Luckily, there's not many Blottenbergers out there.
Blottenberger.
Same thing on Instagram, LinkedIn. Those are probably the best ways. Just shoot me a DM. Let me know what you thought. If there's any way I can support. I don't know. I just love helping people. I love looking at it through this lens, and ultimately the objective is to wake people up to their power and to give them the freedom of choice, real choice. And so if there's anybody that is hearing this and is like, dang, I could really use some support with this, shoot me a message. I got you.
That's really, I guess I just don't know what to say. I am speechless. Wow. That's a first. No, just kidding.
Is it? Or are you?
No, probably. No, I've been speechless before. That's really cool that you do that and you're willing to do that for people, because really I believe it's just that's why I do this podcast. It's just that one thing that's going to trigger you or help you in some ways and can change your life. And it really is something so simple as, understanding what you did when you found that 6-year-old inner child, and finding your 6-year-old inner child, because that's exactly what mine was at 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And forgiving them and moving on and forgiving all the people around you and changing your mindset, that really changes your life. People think I'm crazy, but I know it really works.
No, you're not crazy, right? The more you are aware of your mindset, the more choice you have. The more you can alter your mindset, the more sets of choices you have. And the more sets of choices you have, the more you have freedom to move beyond the paycheck.
Very good. And on that note, we're going to end.
Trademark Timmy. Here we go. Or Tommy, here we go.
Your name is Tom. Okay. On that note, we're going to cut. It was wonderful talking to you.
You too.